Alright, I'm back out in front of the camera. I've got a 303, or is it not? Alright folks, today we're going to talk about this. You might be thinking, what is this? This is the P14. The P14 stands for Patent 1914. But we're going to talk about the history behind this first. Now the P14 was basically, it started off life as the P13. Basically we wanted to replace the older SMLE rifles with a much more better cartridge. The only best way I can describe the cartridge that it uses a 276 Enfield, which is it has the same ballistics as a 3006. So think of a 3006 but with a big rim. It's also tapered, but as I say, ballistically it's a 3006. Reason being is because we want to replace the SMLE series, or the Lee Enfield family, because of the Second Boer War. We found out, because the Boers were using a Mauser action, already a Mauser, the 1893 Mausers, we ultimately want to upgrade the system with a much more longer barrel, different sights, Mauser bolt, so it's a stronger action. Ultimately 1,000 P13s are made, but however, due to a conflict that we all know, that is called World War I, that project was shelved, and really what happened was Vickers had a go at making these in 303. It worked, but however, Vickers had to quickly shelve that. They made bayonets for them, which that's pretty cool. And ultimately in 1915 we got 3 contracts in the United States with Winchester, Remington, and Remington Eddystone. Those are the 3 contracts that those are the 3 companies that made P14s. Now, ultimately, they made over 1 million of these for the UK. So think of it as a World War I lend-lease, because Savage and Longbranch made number 4s for the UK, and also more Longbranch for themselves, for the Canadians. But basically, the US made us these. When the US entered the war in 1917, they rechambered these for 3006, and they removed the volley sights and stuff like that. You might notice that this still has the volley sight screw. We'll talk about that in a minute. Ultimately, what happened after World War I, in the 1920s, these got chucked into storage, covered in cosmoline, chucked into storage, just like that. Now, we get to 1930s. During the 1920s and 30s, I probably should have mentioned this, but we exported 47,000, or is it 46,000? 47,000 to the Baltics, so Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. Forgotten Weapons has done a video on the 7.62x54R rechambered P14 and a 303 rechambered Arisaka. He has done a video on that, which that is interesting, so I'll leave a card top right corner. So we exported 46 or 47,000 P14s to the Baltics. The Baltics then exported 200 P14s to the Chinese, and we exported 200 P14s for internationalist brigades that went over to Spain to fight in the Spanish Civil War. So these were mainly with British men that went over, and they had P14s to help the Republicans fight in the Spanish Civil War against the nationalists. This one stayed with the British, and ultimately in 1938, 1939, these were also retooled and re-updated, known as WRS, Whedon Repair Standards. What happened was, they got new barrels, new stocks, and if they had existing stocks with volley sights on, they would just remove the volley sights entirely, but they would still keep the volley sight plate in. This one was made by, you can see there, is made by Remington, RE, so Remington in New York. This is a Mark 1 P14. They did make a Mark 1 Star P14. The only difference being is actually the locking lugs. The locking lugs on a Mark 1 is a 0.6. On a Mark 1 Star is a 0.7. So, but basically, the way I know it's a Mark 1 Star is because it's actually by the serial number. Remington ultimately sent 54,000 Mark 1 P14s, and this one is in the 16,000. So obviously the start of serial number starts off with 1, 6, and then there's 4 digits after that. And of course I looked up those serial numbers, and this falls into the category of, it was made sometime in August 1916. So it was coming up to his 110th birthday very soon. And I even took this handguard off, and there was a date of 1916. So this still has his original barrel on it. Now we're going to talk about what happened. So basically, because this one stayed in British service, you might notice that obviously it has the volley sight screw in. But what did happen was they took off the volley sight arm, which has the little pointer. Well, it has a pointer in this end, but it has a little cylinder thing, and you'd use that to aim. Basically, just to create, fire further distances than what's on the sight. So this would go from 17 to 26. On the sight on the P14, it goes to only 16. But basically, because this stayed, because in the 1930s, like I said, this went under the WRS. So ultimately, it got the volley sight plate removed. I refer to that as the volley sight plate because that's what it is. And this one also got its rear volley sight, which would be from here to that little indentation there. Now the interesting part is that even though, yes, this is a Remington made gun all the way in New York, it has a Winchester made stock. I don't know whether you're going to see that, but I'll put up a picture. It has a broad arrow, a star, IW in a circle, which is Winchester. And on the bottom, it has PAT 14, which is obviously short an abbreviation of Pattern 14. So there's that. But basically, this P14 has been through it, and then obviously in the 1940s, or 1940, this was given to the Home Guard. So it's been through some things. This one has been deactivated. So this one has been deactivated to old spec. I will cover what the EU stuff looks like, because honestly the EU stuff is a lot of crap. I have to say it. But because it's old spec, it will still cock, dry fire, and it will strip as well. I don't dry fire this a lot, simply because of the firing pin on the firing pins on Mausers that I've had is a little bit finicky and does not help that with my number 4 firing pin. It's shattered, simply because the cocking piece wasn't actually screwed. No, it was actually the firing pin that wasn't screwed in all the way into the cocking piece. So it was like moving, because you know when you lift the bolt up on number 4, it shouldn't rotate. It was rotating about 0.5 to 1 millimeter. Not good, but either way. Now this one has an electro pencil on the side here of ASA 1977. ASA is the definition for a club. This P14 was in a target or a shooting club. And this one has, because apparently I read up that some of these was rechambered in 7.62 NATO. This one hasn't. If I actually were to do a muzzle test, in case you're not aware of what a muzzle test is, you take a bullet for whatever cartridge it may be, and you put it down there, and depending on how much copper shows how good this bore is. And this bore is actually pretty good. Right, so I've got a inert round. This is a 1950 Redway Green Mark 7, and we're going to put it down the bore of the P14. As you can see, look at that. Oop, went in. If I can try and get a better. But as you can see, there is still some life in that. But then again, the size of 303s are different, as one 303 could be larger than the other. But either way, this one has, like I said, it has a Mauser style bolt. So what that means is that it has two front locking lugs that lock into the receiver. So basically they rotate. And it has a big old ejector right here. I did do a video where you can actually put a piece of brass on that ejector and it will kick the brass out. Sorry, the extractor, I mean. This does still have the ejector. The ejector is in there. This one has been deactivated in a way where if you bring back the bolt, it will just ride over it. Because most of the time you find deactivated weapons with the bolt head cut 45 degrees. What that allows you to do is, if you bring the P14 bolt about there, you have to put your finger in to press the magazine, bring the bolt on in. Field stripping the rifle is pretty simple. Or even just checking the firing pin. What you need to do is open up the bolt, bring the safety, this is your safety right here. I'll talk about the safety in a minute. Bring the bolt and down, as you can see, that's the pin, that's the firing pin right there. It's covered in WD-40, all the components. So that's the firing pin in there. You can either use an old washer, or you can even use a penny. Yes, you can use a penny to strip down the P14. And basically, it's the same as a Mauser at that point. As soon as you get it out, you can just strip it on down. Like I said, this is your safety here. The safety on the P14, I think, is really convenient, especially if you're a right-handed shooter, like me. So you could take aim with this. You can apply it with the thumb. To which I think that is really convenient. Now you can actuate this with the thumb. Because if you're left-handed, meanwhile, I'm not a left-handed shooter. Now, if you're doing it left-hand, you have to kind of reach over and move your grip. It's not the best one. I say if you're left-handed, use the SMLE safety. But I'm just saying from a right-handed perspective. Now, the good thing about the P14, it has this dog-leg bolt handle. Lift it up. As you can see, that bolt handle there, what that allows you to do is it allows you to get close to the trigger. So basically, because E-springs, because you've got that bolt handle here, if it didn't have this dog leg shape, it would just come down here to in front of the trigger, to which it would really be like that. But because it comes back and it's behind the trigger now, it means you can easily just, you know, do that. You know, do the mad minute and stuff. Obviously, it's got your typical, you know, Mauser bolt release as seen on any other Mauser. Now, I think the one thing that really benefits this from any other bolt action rifle in the First World War is this nice, crisp rear aperture sight. don't get me wrong, this sight is fantastic. Simply because you got what is referred to in the modern day as a ghost ring. You flip it up, you got an adjustable setting that can go up to, pretty sure it goes up to 1600. Which obviously it looks like that, and it's a bit obsolete, but it's not as obsolete as the sights on like an SMLE or a Mauser. That goes up to 2000, which is very optimistic. So this is really good. Now we're going to talk about, the final thing we're going to talk about is the bayonet. The bayonet for these is what is referred to as the pattern 1913 bayonet. This will not take a 1907, because the 1907 is built with the bayonet attachment point on the nose cap. So this takes a 1913 pattern bayonet, and this can also take a US model of 1917 bayonet as well. The only difference between the two is that the 1917 has a little cut in the thing, which is it's not the end of the world, but hey. And either way, so the bayonets on these, I forgot to mention, look at this front sight hood. There's a pretty nice front sight hood. It's really like the number 4. But yeah, the bayonets on these are the 1913 and the 1917, but really the M1917 is meant for the M1917 rifle. The pattern 13 is obviously meant for the P14. And so, what's my honest opinions about the P14? If you're in a place like America, or even in the UK, I would say this is a good shooter. Well, it's a good gun for a good shooter. I would say this is a pretty good hunting rifle, in my opinion, because it's got a heavier barrel. It's got obviously it's going to have better velocity as well, even though it's firing a 303. And it would have, I think it has a little bit more accuracy because it has a little bit more rifling on the inside. And plus you have that Mauser action on this, with a really nice peep sight. You can really acquire a target. And so that's my video on the Pattern 14. You can also say Pattern 1914 as well, but I'm just going to say P14. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and bye for now.